Welcome to the Typical Sportsman Podcast. I am joined today by Mr. Bryan Burkhardt, who is full of incredible hunting adventures. He is full of incredible stories, but none as great as the tribute hunt that he went on, paying tribute to Fred Bear and Glenn St. Charles, going to the Little Delta and recreating the 59 hunt, the iconic hunt that Fred Bear did. He recreates it, but he takes it a step further. He's using original 59 bows. He's using original arrows with Fred Bear's original fletchings. He is wearing Fred Bear's bolo. He is using original 59 razorhead broadheads. They try to make this as much like the 59 hunt that they could. It is an incredible adventure, and Bryan shoots a giant bull moose, and the story gets even better and even crazier with more twists and turns. So Bryan is just a phenomenal guy. He is one of those guys that I could listen to for hours because he is full of such incredible stories. This episode is brought to you by my good friends over at ScentLok. Bryan and myself, we both share a love for whitetail hunting, and you'll hear it in his stories. He loves whitetail hunting. Well, we all know when you're whitetail hunting that scent control is one of the most important things that you need to keep in mind. ScentLok makes keeping your scent under control a lot easier. Why? Because their clothing has activated carbon, which gives you maximum odor absorption. Now, I am not going to sit here and say that you do not have to hunt the wind. I am not going to sit here and say that you do not have to worry about scent control. Your scent is the single most important thing that you have to worry about when you're whitetail hunting. However, how I feel about activated carbon is it's an insurance policy. It helps me get by with just a little more because it's working to absorb those odors. Still have to hunt the wind, still have to be mindful of where my wind direction is. However, it's a little bit of insurance. If a deer does get downwind, it gives me a little bit of insurance. Guys, go check out ScentLok. I promise you, you will be glad you did. I also want to make note, the new Keep the Dusty Side Up shirt is on the Typical Sportsman website. Check this out. I had one of the best artists that I could come up with design this truck with the deer laying across it and keep the dusty side up. It's how I end every episode, and nothing makes me happier than when I hear somebody, a fan, somebody who listens to the show, walking by and they say, hey, keep the dusty side up. That makes me so incredibly happy. And now you can just say it with the shirt. So go to typicalsportsman.com and get your Keep the Dusty Side Up shirt right now. I also just dropped on the website a bunch of Bottomland Typical Sportsman apparel. So go check that out because everything is better in Bottomland, and most Typical Sportsmen just absolutely love the classic sexy camo of Bottomland. Little side story here. Keep the Dusty Side Up. I was on a backcountry bear hunt in Idaho. I stop into a little bitty town, Atlanta, Idaho. And when I mean little bitty, I mean like population 8. But there was a burger joint where I could get a hot meal. We had been in the backcountry for 6 days. We wanted a hot meal. So we stop in at this little burger joint. We grab a burger. And as we leave the burger joint, there's an old Merle Haggard looking cat sitting on the porch. We talked to him for a while. He was a character. Let me just tell you that. He ends our conversation with telling us, you boys, keep the dusty side up. I was enthralled with the statement from the get-go, not having any idea what he meant. I asked everyone that I encountered, every Idahoan that I could find, what in the world does keep the dusty side up mean? Basically, what I came to the conclusion of is that I met a crazy old man on a porch who was drunk at 2:00 on a Tuesday in the mountains. That's what I came to the conclusion of. However, after doing a little more research, it can basically mean anything you want it to. Have a great day, be safe, whatever. So, get the Keep the Dusty Side Up shirt at typicalsportsman.com. It's a cool shirt. Let's jump in with Mr. Bryan Burkhardt and talk about the tribute hunt on the Little Delta, where he kills an incredible bull moose and a great story to go along with it.
For the true sportsman, it's more than a pastime. It's a way of life. Embrace the lifestyle of hunting, fishing, and the thrill of the wild. Live the life. Be typical.
If you're a hunter, you need to pay attention. And of course you're a hunter because you're listening to the Typical Sportsman podcast. One of my favorite products of all time, Ancient. They make moccasins, quiet moccasins for stalking, or stalkisons, if you will. These things are absolutely dead quiet. I put them to the test just by sneaking through the house to see if I could sneak up on my wife. And they worked. Shot bears with them, chased elk with them. I've shot deer with them. These things hold up. Why? Because they're 100% American made with real leather. Phenomenal products. They are making old school cool again. Guys, listen, if you like to stock up on animals, any kind of stalking, turkey hunting, bear hunting, deer hunting, elk hunting, if you want to get close to animals, you have to walk quietly. I would highly, highly encourage you to go check out Ancient. That's ANXYNT. These are the coolest shoes you'll ever wear. I even rock them. I rock them as everyday drivers. Just headed to Walmart because they look stinking dope. Guys, go check them out. Use code Typical Sportsman. It's going to save you 10%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but here's what I'm going to tell you. You're not going to find a discount on these anywhere else. Go check out Ancient. Get you a pair of the baddest shoes you've ever owned and walk quieter and get closer. Bryan Burkhardt, how are you, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, Dylan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been busy, man. You've been hunting nonstop, seems like.
Yeah, that's why I retired, so I could hunt some more. So,
hey, there's nothing wrong with that, man. You deserve it.
Yeah, thanks. It's crazy. I've been retired 7 years now, and you got to that point where it's like time versus money, and I just wanted more time, and so I'm taking full advantage of it. So, pretty blessed.
Yeah. No, again, nothing wrong with that, man. It's always you never think about it much until you start seeing your parents retire. And then you're like, I'm happy for you. Like, you deserve this. You deserve a time to just kick back. And I mean, it means you're old, like that's what it means. But, and my mom actually just told me 2 weeks ago that she put in her paperwork for retirement. And I said, Mom, that means you're old. And she said, son, I'll tell you what, when my youngest son went bald, that meant I was old. And I was like, well, you turned that one around on me pretty quick, didn't you?
Touché, huh? Well, I'm 62, so you're right. I'm old, but, I can still do whatever I want to do. So it doesn't.
Yeah. Good for you, man. Good for you.
Pretty happy.
Absolutely. For those of you that don't know, Mr. Bryan Burkhardt, he is the past president of Compton Traditional Archers and a phenomenal bow hunter. In other people's minds, he's too humble to tell you that, but a phenomenal bow hunter. He has been around this game for a long time. I actually was just on a couple episodes ago, somebody was telling me about a film that they had produced. And I said, if you have not watched Bryan Burkhardt and Jim Eckout and them reproducing the Little Delta hunt, that's incredible. So you've done a lot of cool stuff. Yeah. Before we get into that, I do want to share that. We haven't gotten that story on the Typical Sportsman yet. So before we share that, give us an introduction to yourself, man.
Yeah. So, again, my name's Bryan Burkhardt, and I grew up in Michigan. And, one of the neat things about growing up in Michigan is back in the day, the Fred Beer Museum and the actual factory used to be in Grayling, Michigan. So every year when my family would go up on vacation, we'd stop at the museum, and every once in a while, Fred would be in there. And it was just really cool as a kid to get the opportunity to meet him, see all his mounts. And they had a really small theater in the museum, and you could go up there and see his latest adventure. And we always did. And it was really cool. So just have a rich bow hunting background. My dad was an avid bow hunter, and I've got 4 other brothers, and we would all go up to northern Michigan and do some bow hunting. And, so my dad was my mentor, and Fred Bear was my childhood hero.
Yeah, that's incredible. How did you get involved with Compton? How did you get to where you're at now?
Well, Compton is the only national traditional bow hunting organization, and I've always hunted with traditional equipment. And so I was a member from day one, and then just I was working and I had a pretty stressful job, so I didn't have the time. But when I retired, I'm like, you know what? It's time for me to give back. And so I became the president of Compton Traditional Bow Hunters. I did that for 4 years, and I'm still on the board as past president, but it's more of an advisory capacity than give me a bunch of assignments. So
Right.
we've got a great leadership team with Compton Traditional Bow Hunters, and it's a great organization to be a part of. So if you're a traditional bow hunter, you definitely should belong to Compton.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am a member. And you guys do a phenomenal job. Your magazine is always very well produced. I love getting. It's one of the very few magazines that I still receive and look at and get. That and the Pope and Young magazine are really the only two magazines that I'm going to open up and look at. And really, it comes down to the stories for me. It doesn't have. That's really all I want to do is read those stories of these incredible hunts and incredible adventures and incredible success and. Just get to relive those in a way that, print material and reading a story, it's kind of dead. It's a lost form of media in a lot of realms. And so just getting to digest a really cool story like that through that type of media is beneficial to me. And I really like that. So you guys keep doing what you're doing, man. And what does Compton Traditional, what does being a member really do? Like what is Compton working to achieve? What is your membership doing for you?
So really the mission of Compton is to really promote traditional archery and traditional bow hunting. And I would say if you look at Compton from a brand standpoint, we put a lot of focus on getting bows and arrows into kids' hands. So we've got a super strong youth program. We do a couple of youth hunts a year as well. And we've donated thousands of bows and arrows to different youth groups across the country over the lifetime of Compton. So it's really about getting that next generation involved and engaged in traditional archery and traditional bow hunting. We also have Compton member hunts that, if you're a Compton member, you can go on these Compton member hunts. We've got the magazine, as you mentioned, and we do have a digital membership, but I'm like you, I like actually holding the magazine and reading it,
Yeah.
Just watching the pictures come to life from the pages. And so as you mentioned, we've got a really neat magazine. We also have every June we have what we call the Compton Rendezvous, and historically it's been in Michigan the last 25 years, and this year we're moving it to Indiana, to Cataway Archery in Noblesville, Indiana. So that brings thousands of traditional bow hunters together. There's seminars, there's 4 different archery ranges and keynote speakers. It's just a great time, bunch of camping and a bunch of storytelling about hunts in the past and hunts to come. So it's
very cool.
Yeah, and then we do every other year we do what's called the Compton Big Game Classic, and that's more of a hotel venue, like a banquet. And again, we've got keynote speakers, and we do a movie night with traditional films, and it's just Fred Eichler was our keynote speaker. We had it in Colorado this last year, and so we just have a great time with it.
You should find better keynote speakers.
Yeah,
I mean, there's
Fred
a lot better out there.
He was a little, he doesn't have any energy. I don't know what's
No, he's a boring, dry guy who probably didn't even carry the crowd.
Yeah, he did a great job. And in fact, as soon as he was done speaking after our Big Game Classic ended, he actually drove like 24 hours to Florida.
Yeah. What's funny is he's actually doing the speaking engagement for the Kansas Bow Hunters Association this Saturday night, and it's a couple hours from me. And so I texted him. I'm like, "Hey man, let's get together. We'll grill out, shoot some bows beforehand." And he was like, "Sounds good, man." And then like I'm making plans to drive up and listen to him speak. And because you're right, he is a very boring speaker. Like I want to drive a couple hours just to get a good nap in. And And then my wife was like, well, baby, I'm out of town and you got all the kids. And I'm like, well, crud, like that ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
So I'm going to miss him speaking this time, but no, he's a phenomenal guy. One of the greatest hunters to ever do it, but also one of the most entertaining people.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can complete the North American Super Slam and do all these incredible things, kill all these incredible animals with your bow, and then you lose your absolute mind over shooting a whitetail doe with your bow. Like I hope I can always keep that. I hope that's me. Not that I have aspirations to complete the Super Slam or anything, but I hope I never lose the pure joy in just being out there and hunting. And that's what I really admire Fred for.
Yeah, and you watch Fred on TV, and you get to see that persona. But then, I've hunted with him a couple times in Colorado, and that's just Fred. He's just
that's him. Yeah, that's him.
And
yeah,
so it's genuine.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Man, so your bow hunting journey, was it always traditional? Was it always just start with Stickbow, never leave it? Or, how'd that go?
Well, it started out, so my dad killed his first doe with a recurve in 1961. And he came home, and it was so impactful. He came home and sold 32 guns and said, I'll never hunt with a gun again. And so, we all started out with Bear recurves. And my first hunting bow was a Bear Kodiak Magnum. And my dad had a rule that, you had to hunt from the ground. Tree stands, I started hunting in 1975. I was 12 years old. And you had to be 12 years old to bow hunt in Michigan. And they had just legalized tree stands. But my dad didn't want 5, young kids climbing trees and, falling out of them. So he had this rule that you've got to kill a deer from the ground before you can get in a tree stand. And it took me 5 years, and I had some, close encounters. I had deer, chewing on my natural ground blind. We didn't have pop-up blinds then. And, but it finally came together, the 5th year of bow hunting. And it was really neat. And I've got my oldest brother. He wasn't really into bow hunting a ton, but he was 32 before he could get in a tree stand. So
really,
it took him a long time, but he stuck with the rule of staying on the ground. But anyway, after I killed my first deer, I went to a compound for 2 years. And I was still shooting traditional, but I also, my dad had a compound that was custom made for him from Owen Jeffrey. And so it was wood handle. I think it was like 40% let off. It just had round wheels. And I just shot it bare bow. So no sights, no release. And just, to be honest with you, I shot it like I shot a recurve. I canted it and everything else. And so, after 2 years of doing that, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going back to longbows and recurves. And so I've done that ever since.
Now, the reason I asked that is because if you're listening to this and you're dabbling in traditional archery, or you like it, but you still shoot a compound like that, that's where I'm at. I don't, I'm not traditional only. If I'm, going on this hunt, I might take a compound. If I'm going on this hunt, I might take a recurve. I say all that to say this: Compton traditional archery and all these events that we're talking about, and getting plugged into the traditional community isn't just for those who are trad only. And I've tried to explain this to people, and it's really hard to understand because the archery community is such a great community. Like it really is. And I'm talking archery as a whole. It's just such a great community. There's such a tight knit family. And, if you go to an event, you get to see all your old friends and just be a part of the bow hunting community. But when you get into the traditional archery community, it is mind blowing just how tight knit everyone is and how everyone's supporting everyone. And it is such a cool community. So I say all that to say this: if you just dabble in traditional archery, don't let that stop you and say, well, I'm not traditional only, so I don't belong to that crowd. Get involved with it, man, because it is a super cool crowd. And I've never, ever had anyone who is traditional only look down on me and say, but you shoot a compound every once in a while. I never have. I know that's the stigma, is like stick bow hunters are these arrogant people who think they're better than everybody else, but I have never had anyone say, "Oh, but you shot a deer last year with a compound?" Like I never have. So get involved in the traditional community because it is so cool. It really is. And that's why I enjoy it so much, I think. And just hearing stories from guys like yourself and you get to talk to some of these folks, and it's just, it's an incredible community. It really is.
Well, you're right on, Dylan. I mean, it's, obviously it's a lot smaller than, compounds and the entire archery community, but it is like a family. It's, and everyone is willing to help anyone out. And so a lot of our new members are wanting a little more challenge, and they're coming from the compound side, getting into traditional. So it's one of those where, come to one of the events, the Rendezvous or the Big Game Classic, connect with members, and you've got an instant network of people that love to go on adventure and bow hunts, and that are more than willing to help you out make that transition if that's what you want.
I will address I don't know that it's a stigma. I will address something that I've heard, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. Anytime I do a review or anytime I do a video featuring, like even the Eichler, because it's not wooden, Eichler riser from Bear, or if I do like, the new, I don't know if you've seen these yet, but the new, wild vein from Boning, which is it's a regular old vein. The material is the same as a blazer vein. It's the same profile as the Atlas, but it's a lot lower profile. It's the same shape, a lot lower of a profile. And so, but even doing a video on things like this, you hear from the traditional community, that's not traditional. That's what you hear is that's not traditional archery. Or again, even like with the Eichler riser, it's like, well, that's not traditional because you can put a stabilizer on it. And, I'm of the mindset, like go as traditional as you want. Like it doesn't have to be all in or nothing.
There's definitely a spectrum, so you look at the plastic veins that you're talking about. Paul Schaefer, one of the traditional icons, shot plastic veins way back in the day. So, there's a spectrum of traditional. I would say that traditional archers and traditional bow hunters tend to be very opinionated. So, you'll hear that from some folks, but, there is a spectrum. I shoot wood arrows with natural turkey feathers. So that's me. But most of my friends shoot carbon, and a lot of them shoot plastic veins. So it's really, that doesn't bother me. I don't get hung up on that. Because if you shoot just like a glass longbow and recurve like I do, and I shoot bare bows, somebody's saying, well, you ought to do a self bow. That's really traditional. And it is. But, so is shooting longbows and recurves that are made out of laminated glass. So, to me, it's a spectrum. Hit the spot on the spectrum that makes sense for you and that you're comfortable with, and don't really worry about anybody else.
Yeah. And that's what, I just want to encourage people again, if like you've looked at like, man, I really wanted to get into this, and I'll be honest, as soon as I got into traditional archery, I immediately knew in my mind, I am not going to shoot wooden arrows. Too much work. Like it's just too much time, effort, energy. If you shoot wooden arrows, you're weird. That was my mind, it's just like, I know I'm going to shoot carbon, and I know there are going to be people say, well, you should shoot wood. But and to those guys, I always respond with, whatever it is they're talking about, that's not traditional enough. I just want to ask them like, okay, sir, so you are making a self bow, I would assume, but you're also not buying a string. You're making a string. On your own out of materials. You're also making your own arrows. You're not buying wooden arrows. And I would hope that you're sharpening rocks to tie to those arrows that you've made yourself, if this is the stance you want to take, because you can always go more traditional.
Right.
And again, I'm not trying to fight those people on that. But you can always go more traditional. You can always go further down that spectrum. And so there can always be somebody looking back saying, but that's not trad enough. And that's why I just want to encourage people, don't let that barrier of entry and saying like, well, I don't want to go all the way down that road of feathers and wood arrows and self bows, and then don't. Like, buy an Eichler where the grip feels the same as the compound you've shot your whole life. That's why I enjoy the Eichler because it's a grip I'm familiar with. Yeah. Do I like the Kodiak Hunters, and do I like the 59 Kodiaks? And yeah, absolutely. But I shoot the Eichler the best because it's a grip that I'm used to. That's because I grew up shooting compounds. So find a bow you enjoy shooting, and you don't have to go all the way down the spectrum to appease some crowd. Like, just do what you enjoy doing. And that's what this is all for. Like, we don't do this to appease somebody else.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is do what you're comfortable with and take the journey as far as you want to take it.
Absolutely.
For me, I'm not really into the primitive self bows. A lot of people are. I've got a lot of friends that are. But to me, I like the bear takedowns and the bear 59s, and that's what I'm going with. So, to me, it's you nailed it. Just don't worry about anyone else. Make the journey your own and shoot what you're comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I would love to hear, and for those listening, I'm sure they would love to hear. You've done a lot of cool hunts. You've done a lot of cool adventures. First off, if you don't follow Bryan on any kind of social media, don't go follow him. Like, he's the type of guy that will absolutely make you mad, because you're sitting in your tree stand in Kansas and you're begging for a 150 to walk by, and Bryan is filming the 150s at 10 yards and saying like, and I'm like, dude, just let, I'll come out. In my
defense, it was my first time hunting Kansas. And I'm like, I don't, it was day 4 when I had probably 160, within 15 yards 4 different times, and let him walk and just shot video. But I didn't want the hunt to end that soon. So you can't be mad at me for that.
I'm not mad at you. I'm just, I am giving you the courtesy to say, Bryan, I will come shoot all of these dinks that you're letting walk by. That's my courtesy to you.
I got
because I don't want you to be tempted. Like, I don't want you to so you just say, Dylan, that 150, man, he's not big enough for me. You go ahead and plug him. And no, I'm just kidding. But you've done
what's interesting about that, though, is I just always go with my gut,
Yeah.
And if it feels right and it's the situation, it depends on the situation. And so I ended up closing out my Kansas season with a lot smaller deer than I passed up, nice 10 point, but, not as big as the ones I passed up. And I was okay with that. I squeezed every ounce of that hunt out of the season. I had to get back home after 32 days, and it's kind of like, it's time for it to be done. And unfortunately I had a nice opportunity, but yeah, it's just situational. So for me,
100%, I completely agree with you. And I can't tell you, like, my dad, I don't think he's wrapped his mind around this yet. I can talk as bad as I want to about him because he doesn't know what a podcast is. Like, he can't find a podcast if you paid him to find one.
Yeah.
But he hasn't wrapped his mind around that yet. And he's down south. He lives in Arkansas still, where there's just your big deer weigh 104 pounds, so it's a different game. But anyways, and all the time I hear from him, like, if I kill a deer and I'm pumped about it, he's like, dude, you were taking videos of deer bigger than that all year long.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but they weren't the one. Like, I can't tell you why.
Yeah.
And listen, I know I work in the world of Pope and Young, and everybody expects me to shoot the biggest and the baddest trophies because of who I'm employed by.
Right.
But that's not who I am, man. I'm the king of 125s. Like, that's where I live. I live in that zone. But I don't get caught up in that. I don't get caught up in, holy cow, he's got a massive rack up top. I get caught up in, dude, I just saw him fighting off these 2 bucks, and then he puts on a show over here, and he's making scrubs and he's making rubs and scrapes, and he's snorting and wheezing, and then he comes 8 yards away. Like, that is the story I want to unfold. You know what I mean? And hey, I would be lying if I said my standards don't change if I've got a compound and a recurve, because I have 100% passed deer with a compound and thought, dude, if I just had a recurve, I would love to shoot you. Like that would be an accomplishment.
Or if you're on the ground or you're spotting and stalking in Alaska for Kodiak blacktail, it's a different game. So it's just
100%.
For me, it's situational. And again, it's shoot whatever makes you happy and be comfortable with that. And again, a common theme is don't worry about other people. Do it for yourself. Do it for what makes you happy.
100%. And going back to Mr. Eichler and his excitement over a doe, dude, I lost my mind over a doe this year because I had it in my mind. I didn't get to do an elk hunt this year. And so I was like, I need that spot and stalk experience. Like I have to do this. Yeah. I can't go a year without doing that. And so I'm like, I'm just going to stalk through this property and see if I can't kill a deer with my recurve. And honestly, I thought, dude, there's no way I'm going to spot and stalk a deer in Kansas with a recurve. And sure enough, dude, the way this worked out, like she was up against a dry creek, sandbed creek. And so I could crawl up that creek and then just pop up and shoot her. And it was the coolest thing ever. And it was like the best moment of my life to shoot this deer on the ground with a recurve, spot and stalk. Like it was a massive accomplishment and I lost my mind. And then I missed 2 bucks. And I'm like, dude,
I'll tell you what, I passed up a bunch of does in Kansas this year and, cause I didn't want to shoot one during the rut. And then late season, I'm there late December and I'm trying to kill a doe and
you can't see one.
A mature doe in the late season, that's a hard animal to kill.
Yep.
No, never gave me an opportunity. So,
yep. You notice as they feed through, they just keep their eyes up towards you in that direction. They know where you're at. They know what they've been seeing you walk in and out. They know what you're doing and they are hard to kill. You're right, man. I had a rough go this year, dude, to the point where I almost just snapped that recurve over a log.
Well, don't do that.
I'll tell you the heart.
You can do that.
Yeah. I'll tell you the heartbreaking one. My clothes washer went out at the house. And so I was like, well, I'm going to take the kids out. They need to do some laundry for school. So I'm going to take them out to the in-laws and they've just got 5 acres there. And I didn't have a tree stand or a blind or anything, but I'm like, all right, you guys go in, do your laundry. I'm going to go sit out here against a tree and just see what happens. Yeah. And honestly, it was one of those super low pressure, just like, man, I'm just enjoying the woods type hunt, not expecting to see or do much. And within like 10 minutes, I was out there for 10 minutes. I see a buck running across the field and he's coming into their little 5 acre wood plot. And I'm like, what the heck? Like this could happen. And he gets at 24 yards and which is a little pushing it, but I was like, oh dude, this is it. And I draw back and buddy, I let off the best shot I could let off. And I punched that shoulder and I just hit that shoulder and it and my heart sunk. Yeah. Great. It was an awesome Kansas deer, dude. The coolest deer I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I didn't have a lot of chance to really pick it apart on what it was. But what I do know is one side was massive. I mean, it was probably 70 inches on one side.
Wow.
And then the other side was, and I kid you not, like a little 2-inch fork, like just that big.
Some injury.
Yeah, probably so. And I was like, dude, this is a warrior buck. Like, and that side where he had lost that antler, his eye was blind in that eye. It was broken out. Like you could see it was like scabbed over and gone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, dude. So I see him coming through and I'm like, this is the coolest buck I've ever seen in my lifetime. Yeah. And then I shoot him right in the shoulder and the arrow never came out. Like I tracked him for 800 yards, found good blood. Yeah. Ended up tracking him in a cut field. He made it to a bare dirt field and I lost blood in the field, but I knew I was still following him because that front leg you could see his tracks where it was dragging. And, but just never found that deer. And then 2 days ago, I was going out to pick something up from my father-in-law and I see a deer out in a wheat field dead and, like just bones left. There was nothing. I mean, that was in November. So there was nothing left of this deer. And so I go out there and there was no arrow, nothing to see an injury on. I wasn't going to roll this dead, nasty, rotting corpse over to see if there was a shoulder injury or not. But antlers were gone. Somebody had cut them off. Gone, huh? Somebody cut the skull cap off.
Gotcha. So you think that may have been the deer?
There's no, there's no way of knowing. I can't, again, I wasn't going to inspect this gross, nasty. I was dressed for church. Like I was not in, I wasn't going to roll over this nasty corpse just to see if the shoulder was injured. But just a heartbreaking loss of a deer, because I went from incredibly pumped of like, dude, how did that just happen? In 10 minutes on a property I didn't have anything set up on the ground, like just tucked in against a tree, to not finding it. Like it was a rough one.
Those sting. I mean, those, make you lose some sleep for sure, because those opportunities don't come along that often. So when they do, you just, all you want to do is make it quick and make the best of it. But it happens. So,
yeah. Who doesn't love a good gun? Who doesn't love a good gun shop? Just walk in, get up on the countertop stool, and share stories with the boys. Talk guns, talk calibers, talk recent hunts. It's a good time. Gun shops are a great place to go and hang out. However, there's a couple gun shops that do it better than others. And then there's one gun shop that really stands out. Powder and String Outfitters. Yeah, I'm a little biased because it's right here in the great town of Wellington, Kansas, right here in my hometown. However, I can tell you that anybody that walks into Powder and String is basically blown away, because Powder and String Outfitters takes you back to a time where, downtown shops were experts in their trade, where a man's word was his bond. They got a creaky floor, they got rustic decor, and they've got a massive selection of guns and ammos. They're a full service gun shop. They've got an in-house hot bluing facility. They've got a full machine shop. They've got a custom legendary gun engraver. Literally, when I say legendary, Mr. Brian Strange, their hand engraver, is world class. They've got the engraver. They've got gunsmiths. They have everything that you could ever possibly dream of having in a gun shop. They're also a small town, hometown, family-owned shop where you can call and talk to the owner. Guys, they've taken that same feel, that same great gun shop feel, and made it available online. Powderandstring.com. You can buy all your guns, all your ammo, all your shooting accessories right there online in the convenience of your own home. You can stand behind the people that you're supporting because the guys are phenomenal. And again, I am of the opinion that if I'm going to shop for guns and ammo, I don't want to do it at a big box store. I want to support somebody like the Powder and String staff. So guys, go check them out for all your guns, all your ammo, all your shooting accessories. They've got it. They are knowledgeable. You can call them. You can talk to somebody, figure out what you need, why you need it, how you need it. They'll take care of you. I actually just bought a new shotgun there. Bought a new A300, and the first shot out of that gun was a dead bird. That's what I'm talking about. And I got it based off their recommendation. Guys, they're phenomenal people. Somebody you can be proud of supporting. Go check them out, powderandstring.com. So we went down a rabbit hole there, but you've done all these incredible adventures, but probably none as incredible as the recreation of the Little Delta hunt. Yeah. So first off, share with us where this idea came from. Like, where did this idea get drummed up at?
Well, so I was still working at the time, and I was driving into work. And so back in the day, they were doing the Fred Bear Field Notes podcast.
Yep.
And this is where they're recapping different Fred Bear adventures.
Uh-huh.
And so I was driving into work, and they're recapping the 1959 iconic Little Delta hunt. And it just clicked. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This is going to be, and this was back in 2019. I'm like, this is going to be the 60th anniversary of that iconic hunt. And I'm like, how cool would it be to go up there with original 1959 Bear Kodiaks and vintage equipment and basically hunt moose? And so I talked to my hunting partner, Jim Echo, who is also a big bear archery fan. And I ran the idea by him. He's like, I'm in. And so we started socializing the idea, and everybody thought it was really cool. And the traditional archery community just started donating items to us to take on this vintage hunt on this, kind of tribute. We called it the tribute hunt because we were paying tribute to Glenn St. Charles, who originally found the Little Delta cabin, and Fred Bear. And they had a bunch of other friends that hunted with them that year, but those were our childhood heroes, and we wanted to pay tribute to them. And so we called it the tribute hunt. And but we had over 40 different items that were given to us, either given to us on loan or given to us to just have, like original Bear razor heads from 1959. I had a friend, John Cabisa, who lives here in Michigan. He gave me one of Fred Bear's personal bolo ties to wear on that hunt. And so it's the black. You'll see it in a bunch of pictures. It's a black bear, and so I had that bolo tie on the hunt, which was really cool. I mean, you talk about having good mojo on the hunt. That was pretty neat. But we actually, John Cabisa owns the original slides from the 1959 Little Delta hunt. So we went over to his place one day and just saw the slides, and we recreated the arrows with the crest that Fred Bear had. So we replicated Fred Bear's arrows that he shot in 1959 on that hunt. And he killed the world record caribou at the time on that 1959 Little Delta hunt. But I wanted Suzanne St. Charles. I wanted that St. Charles connection. So I reached out to Suzanne St. Charles, and she agreed to make the arrows for us identical to how Fred made.
And she makes incredible arrows.
Yeah,
incredible.
Absolutely. And then she actually said, Bryan, I've got some of my father's original fletchings, full fletch, that he used in 1959. And so she made 2 flu-flus for both Jim and I out of those fletchings. So it was really cool. And she signed them. So it was really cool to have that St. Charles connection on a hunt that was paying tribute to her dad and Fred Bear. Really
that is neat. So cool.
Yeah.
We had something from, and I'm going to get in trouble because I don't remember exactly what it was, but our centerpiece at the convention this year, which we ended up auctioning off, I can't remember if it was a pack that hung in the Little Delta and we put a bear mount on it.
Oh, okay.
Or if it was a bear that hung in the Little Delta and we recreated the pack for it. I can't remember, but one of the two came from the Little Delta. And, you know, going back to the traditional community, before I want to interrupt your story really quick. That is something too that is so incredible, of meeting these people, your Merritt Comptons and meeting people that have such a knowledge of the history, and they can take you through. And, you know, this year at the Pope and Young convention, I got to see the original medical files from Ishii. And it's just dude, that is so cool that you have all this stuff and you have all the knowledge of this stuff and you can share all this. Like when you meet those guys, like your Harv Ebers, who can take you through his basement and say like, oh yeah, that hung in a Walmart and Fred signed it for me. Like it's so cool to see this history and to see these pieces and to see these, you know, the Fred Bear hats and the bolos and the like it is incredible to see that history and to know and honor and pay tribute to the ones who laid the foundation for us. That's what's so cool to me.
Yeah, I love it, Dylan. I mean, I love the history part of it. And if you think of the history, you know, you mentioned Ishii, you know, coming out of the wilderness, you know, into town. Then you've got the connection with Saxton Pope, you know, Dr. Pope, and then Art Young, and then Fred Bear. You've got Will Compton in that mix, who Compton Traditional Bowhunters is named after. And so when you think of the legacy and the history, it's really not that long. I mean, we're pretty close to it, which is kind of neat because, I mean, you think of people like Fred Bear and Glenn St. Charles. I was fortunate to be able to meet them. Every time I would go to Seattle on a business meeting, I would stop in the Northwest Archery Shop and see Glenn, and he'd come down. He'd be like, "Where's the guy from Michigan?" And we'd go up into his office, and he had this file cabinet. He'd pull out one of the drawers, and it was just full of manila folders, and he'd pull out a folder, and it was the details of a hunt, all the details. So it was just really cool to be able to spend time with Glenn and talk about some of his hunts and that connection with the history of, archery and traditional archery specifically.
And to take that further, that's where my love for Bear traditional, for the Bear traditional bows, that's where it comes from. If you go to that facility in Gainesville, and you see the amount of history in that place, and you see that they're still using the presses that Fred designed and made, and you get to go into Neil's office, and this is Fred's office, and he's got all this memorabilia stuff there. You're like, dude, how can you not love this? Like, how can you not just be enthralled with this? And I will say this, as we, before we get back to the story, part of the history and the tradition that lives on at Bear Archery that I admire so greatly is that every bow, I don't care if you spend $400 on a grizzly or you spend $1,500 on a takedown, they're all handmade right there in Gainesville. Yeah. And that's something that you don't see often. You can't spend $400 on a bow and get it handmade, hand sanded, hand, painted, hand sprayed. Like that's an incredible thing. And you get to see the ladies writing on there, the poundage, and that they do it all by hand. It's incredible. Back to the Little Delta hunt. So was there added pressure going into this of like, dude, we've got to get this done?
Well, what's interesting is we were asked to speak at the Professional Bowhunter Society, and I told the Ethan, my friend, who's currently the president of PBS, I said, Ethan, I mean, this may be nothing more than a camping trip. And, we were slated as keynote speakers. I'm like, you don't want keynote speakers talking about a camping trip. He's like, oh, it'll be good. So, I mean, there was a little bit of pressure, but honestly, Jim and I were going up there just to have fun and, just to kind of pay tribute to our, childhood heroes. And so, there wasn't pressure. I mean, we always go up there expecting to kill a moose, but, moose are tough. So anyway, there was a little bit of pressure, but not pressure that would take away from the hunt. It was just, you wanted everything to be respectful, and you wanted to pay tribute to Glenn and Fred. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. So going into the hunt, you've got all the gear lined up. You've got all this iconic gear. You've got, all this stuff. How did the preparation for the hunt with all this new gear, and you were a traditional hunter, you are a traditional hunter. You used wood arrows, but now you've got all this new gear that you haven't been using. Like, how did the preparation for that hunt take place?
Well, again, Jim and I both wanted to go up there with original 59 Kodiaks, and trying to find an original 59 Kodiak in moose hunting weight in really good condition is not that easy, So unfortunately, I had a friend that, and I had a lot of people that said, hey, I'll let you borrow my 59 Kodiak, but I want it back. And I would tell them, I'm like, I appreciate it, but if I kill a moose with that bow, it's got to be
you
mine.
Ain't getting it back.
Yeah, you're not getting it back. But anyway, I had a friend that he had a 58-pound Bear 59 original Kodiak in mint condition, and he said, Bryan, this bow deserves to go on this hunt. And so I bought it from him, and that's how I got mine. Jim actually had one. He bought one off eBay, I think. That was it needed to be refurbed. And so he had it refurbed, and that was his 59 Kodiak. So we went up there, and we're comfortable with shooting recurves, and the 59 Kodiak is a great shooter. So it was just, get the arrows from Suzanne and then practice with that bow. And, we went into that hunt very confident with our ability to get it done.
Yeah. What poundage, how much did you have to go up? Like, what do you normally shoot? What was the poundage difference there that you had to jump?
So it was pretty much in my wheelhouse, because I normally go up with a bear takedown with 55-pound limbs, but I use an A handle, so it makes it more like a 57-pound bow. So it's very equivalent to what I'm used to shooting. And if I go up there with a longbow, I'm more in the 60 to 62-pound range. So that really wasn't a big adjustment for myself or Jim.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So leading into the hunt, you land in Alaska. Walk me through the hunt.
So we fly into a halfway strip, and then we fly into camp, and we set up our teepee. So I've got a teepee that it's a titanium goat, and they don't even make them anymore. But it's they have other ones like Kafaru and Seek Outside, but it's an 8-man teepee with no floor. And we get camp set up. We start shooting some arrows because you can't hunt first day. We have to wait till the next day. And we did some moose calling and basically trying to get moose to come towards camp because, if you've ever packed out a moose, it's a tough job. It takes 10 loads and you want it as close to the airstrip as possible. So anyway, we got camp set up, did some shooting, and then did some calling, and then the hunt was on. And it was, we were seeing quite a few moose. In the area we were in, it was what's called an unrestricted area. So it's any bull area. Most areas in the area I hunt right now, it's 55 inches or 4 brow tines. But at the time we were unrestricted, so we could shoot any bull. And Jim.
So were you going into this of like, we're shooting any bull? Like, we just want to kill a bull.
I've killed 7 moose. So for me, I was going to be a little more selective. Jim has not killed a moose with a bow yet. So I think for Jim, it was, first moose, it's going down. But I was going to be a little more selective. And so, we had hunted for 4 days and we were seeing good moose, but, just getting in stickbow range and getting it done, it just wasn't happening. And then it was Friday the 13th, and Jim and I were having, some oatmeal for breakfast. And he said, "Hey, Bryan, it's Friday the 13th, and that's a lucky day." And I told Jim, I'm like, I'm not a superstitious guy, but hey, whatever happens, happens.
Anything will help. Yeah.
Whatever. And so we went out and we hunt different directions. So you've got camp in the middle. Jim would go downriver. I'd go upriver. And I was glassing from the side of the mountain. And all of a sudden I see this bull working the edge of the river. And right in front of my glassing spot, there's a little peninsula, and they like to use that peninsula to go, cross the river and go towards the back of the valley. And so I had a pretty good idea of where this bull was going to go. So I just, bailed down the mountain, got set up on this peninsula, and all of a sudden I hear this grunting, and I just see these palms, he wasn't rocking per se, but with every step, he's just moving his antlers and he's grunting. And I'm like, oh, it's going to go down. And so it's one of those where it's almost like a drag strip where you see, you got a red light, yellow light, and then you see a green light. And he was just getting ready to cross the river, and he was about 25, 30 yards away, and he was just getting ready to cross, and I shot and I hit him, but I could see my shot was low, and he tore across that river. It looked like a bulldozer going into the river. I mean, just water going everywhere. And I immediately crossed the river and did a big circle. And then all of a sudden I could, and there was quite a bit of blood. I know when I crossed the river, I could see a lot of blood. And I did a big circle, and I could just hear him crashing through the brush. And then I shot right through his chest, and he was done. So it was pretty cool to have a moose down. We actually, I left him, went back to camp, and then I got Jim. We went out there, and he had actually crossed the river again at another bend. And Jim's like, "Bryan, there's your bull right there." He saw the antlers sticking up. So it was a pretty cool moment that we've got on video of, recovering that bull. And, it was kind of, to your point, that there wasn't pressure, but it was a relief knowing that, hey, you were paying tribute to 2 of your heroes and you got it done. That was pretty cool.
That is very cool.
And,
very cool.
What's really cool, Dylan, is so I looked for that arrow that I shot through the chest, the kill arrow. I looked for that. Jim and I both looked for it, and we couldn't find it. Well, the moss and the blueberry bushes up there, it can get buried pretty easy. But the next year, I was actually stalking a bull moose. I was on a moose trail stalking, and I looked down, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And it was the arrow from the year before, the kill arrow.
Oh my goodness.
And it was just like, I looked down and, I really didn't even care about the bull at that point. I just like, this is so cool. So I was able to recover that arrow, and it was still in pretty good condition. I just can't believe a moose or another animal didn't break it, since it was straddling the moose trail that I was on.
Wow.
Neat. Yeah.
That is, I do remember that. I was actually going to ask you, didn't you find an arrow? And I couldn't remember if you had found an arrow, from the past and you just thought it was cool. But now I do remember that. That is incredible, man.
Yeah, that was pretty neat.
So before we get into Jim's hunt and kind of how that unfolded, and I might sound super stupid in asking this, how is the cabin still standing there?
Well, so we were, the little Delta cabin is still there, but another guy's kind of using that area. So we weren't actually at the cabin. We were in fairly close proximity to it, but we weren't actually in the cabin. Okay.
So is this cabin, like, is it just, you say another guy is using that, like, can anybody just fly in and walk up to the cabin and go inside of it?
Well, you can, but you've got to get a pilot to go in there, and then, but technically you could do that. I know Joe St. Charles went there, and you had Fred Bear's boots were in there, some bear razor heads were in the wall, and Joe ended up getting a lot of stuff out of the cabin at one point. But I have actually not been to the cabin. I think it'd be, I'm not that far away. So one of these years, if I tag out early, maybe I can call the pilot in and say, hey, take me over there, because it'd be really cool to see it.
How many people do you think stumble upon that and don't even have any idea the history that's there?
It's hard to say. I really don't know. I don't think, since you have to fly in there to get in there, I doubt it's that many. But because the guys running hunts out of there, so it pretty much be the guys he's got coming in to hunt.
Yeah. Okay. So was Jim successful on the hunt?
Well, successful, yes, because we had a great adventure and a great hunt, but he did not kill a moose. But he should have. So I'll tell you the story. So this was a few days later, and again, we were seeing good moose, but Jim's like, hey, Bryan, would you mind hunting with me? Because I was tagged out, and do some calling, and maybe you can pull a bull into me. And so I'm like, sure. And so we went out, and we spotted this bull, and we went down, and I've got to try to remember all the details of this, but we went down. Jim had seen this bull downriver, crossing the river, going back into the valley. And we glassed it, and then we said, hey, let's make a move. We went down there, and we looked around and couldn't find the bull. And that's the one thing, is when you're on the side of the mountain glassing down, everything looks open. Once you get down into the valley, everything's over your head. You can't see a thing. So anyway, we looked for a while, and then we did see him, and he was like going upriver. And so we said, well, let's go back up to the glassing spot. And on the way back from the glassing spot, I found a small moose shed. And so I picked it up, and then we're getting ready to go back across the river and go back up to our glassing spot. And I looked down river. I'm like, Jim, there he is. So this bull had made a loop, and he was actually going back up the river, or, across the river back to where he came from. And so I'm like, Jim, go after him. And so, Jim climbed up the side of the mountain, and he got about 60 yards away from the moose, but the moose kind of knew it was, somebody was after him, and, got away. And so we were back in the glassing spot. And then all of a sudden I look, and I'm like, Jim, there he is. He's going back into the valley. So we went down again, and we saw him I saw him about 300 yards away. And I started cow calling and raking that fake, or not the fake antler, but the antler that I found.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it got his attention, and you saw him turn, and he started coming right at us. And so what I kept doing is I kept working myself away from Jim. I'm like, Jim, you get set up. I'll work myself away so he comes in close. And anyway, long story short, this bull comes into Jim, and Jim's a little bit exposed in the sunlight. And I pulled this bull into about 20 yards, and I could see Jim getting ready to shoot. And then I just see this bull take off, and I ran up to Jim, and I'm like, "Where'd you hit him?" And he just put his head down. He's like, "I shot high." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." I'm like, "Jim, how do you miss a bull moose at 20 yards? And he's like, "Well, a lot of stuff can happen when you're having a heart attack." But it's one of those where it was a great opportunity, but it didn't come together for Jim. But still a really cool encounter. And it's one of those where Jim and I are going back this year. And I really hope Jim gets a moose with his recurve. So,
yeah.
Anyway, he deserves it. He's put in a lot of time and a lot of hunts, but it just hasn't come together with him. It's kind of been a little bit of a nemesis, and hopefully this year we can turn it around. But it was the last night of the hunt. And again, we were seeing mature bulls. And my bull ended up being 62.5 inches is what it was. But it was a younger bull. It was just the way the antlers laid out. It had some decent width to it. But I remember the last day, Jim videotaped 6 moose all together. And I think 3 or 4 of them were bulls. So there must have been a hot cow, but they were on the backside of the valley. And it was just a really cool adventure, just being, with all that vintage gear and getting it done, with the original 59 Kodiak. And it was just, if you like the history and you like that 1959 Little Delta hunt, it was a pretty cool story.
Now, how did you pay tribute with the mount? Like, you had to have mounted it in a cool way with the bow or, something.
Well, moose are big. And so I've only got one shoulder mount. This one's a European mount, but I do have I've got the bow with the arrows and the quiver. So this quiver is one of those old copper quivers that's actually screwed into the handle, into the riser. I've got those arrows. I've got the Fred Bear kit, which was, the knife, the file, and then the stone. That's part of it as well. And the arrows that Suzanne made. I had to give John Cabisa the bolo tie back. He wouldn't let me keep that, which I totally understand.
You didn't have to. I mean, you could have fought him.
Oh, no. No,
you could have lost a friend and kept the bolo. I mean, he couldn't have been that good of a friend,
So I've retired the 1959 that I shot the tribute hunt bull with, and that bow is straddled up across the rack down in my walkout basement. So it's pretty neat when you go by it and you look at it, and then I've got that arrow that actually killed the bull across the rack as well. So just looking at that and knowing. That was a pretty special hunt. That was pretty cool.
That is very cool, man. Yeah. Very cool. What's next for you? Like what do you got coming up next?
Well, let's see. I just I hunted pigs in South Carolina earlier this year, and then I just got back from Mexico. I was hunting Coues deer and javelina, and the Coues deer, man, those things are, you talk about skittish. I was hunting out of a Durango with Stickbow Hunts Mexico, and it was a really cool experience, and those are great guys. But those Coues deer, they are wired. So anyway, I didn't get a Coues deer, got a javelina, and then I'm going back to South Carolina hunting hogs in May, and then at the end of May, I'm going to Molokai, Hawaii, to hunt axis deer. And,
very cool. That's a dream hunt of mine for sure.
Yeah, and I did that. I just got my axis deer back from last year, so I killed a nice axis stag last year and really enjoyed the experience. So I'm going again this year. And actually, Compton Traditional Bow Hunters, we have what we call a dream hunt package. So it's an axis deer hunt in Molokai, and you get a bunch of other gear. And so if you go on the Compton website, you can buy tickets for that. So it's ComptonTradtionalBowhunters.com, and you might, be the winner and be able to go on that hunt with us. So anyway, I've got that. And then Jim and I are going moose hunting. Hopefully I'm going fishing in Alaska in June for halibut and king salmon. And then Jim and I are going in September for moose hunt for pretty much the entire month. And then after that, it'll be whitetails. So
what's your, do you have a go-to whitetail circuit of different states that you hit every year?
Well, so I probably won't draw Kansas this year. I've got points in Iowa. So, I've got another buddy that we're talking about maybe cashing in our points. I don't have enough for like zone 5 or zone 6 that I hunted before, but we may go to another zone and cash in. I've got a lease in Southeast Ohio where I spend most of my time whitetail hunting. And then I've got a cabin up in northern Michigan that I do some late season hunting in. So I just, try to bounce around. It's fun to go to different states and hunt different places. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed hunting Kansas. That was first time last year that I've hunted Kansas. So I want to do that again.
What's a state that you've never got to hunt that you would love to hunt?
Well, let's see. I've hunted, I think I've never hunted Nebraska for whitetail. I'd like to do that. I've killed a turkey in Nebraska at Plum Creek. So that was pretty cool. But, Nebraska would be a state that I'd like to hunt whitetails in. And then what's really weird is I haven't spent a lot of time in the West, hunting. Like I've never hunted mule deer. So I'd like to do that. But it seems like everything happens in September. And in September, I'm going to be in Alaska hunting moose. So let's see, I'm trying to think. My first moose hunt in Alaska was 2008, and I've gone every year since. And I told my pilot, book me through 2030. So
I think the moral of this story is you've got a really good wife.
Oh,
I think that's what
I do.
I think that's the moral of this whole story.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely helps to have a supportive wife. And I am definitely blessed in that regard. And, I guess she knew what she was getting into when we got married, and we've been married 35 years. So, it's worked out. But in fact, when I come back from a hunt, I'm kind of getting in the way of her routine. She's like, when's your next hunt? I'm like, perfect. Strategy's working. I'm very fortunate in that regard. So
when I was working I worked at a bow shop through college. Just how I worked my way through college. And there was this old guy come in and starts talking about all his wives and how many wives he's had and how many divorces he's been through. And somebody said, well, how, like, dude, how, and he started going through. He's like, well, the first wife lasted 3 deer seasons. Second wife lasted 2 deer seasons. Third wife lasted. And I'm like, do you know how long you were actually married to these women? Yeah. And he was like, no, I just go off of deer seasons they survived. Yeah. And I'm just like, dude, you've got some issues, man. Like you've got some things you need to work out with the Lord. But outside of that, I feel blessed as well, for sure. I've oftentimes said, as soon as my kids are grown, I'm gone. Like you won't see me no more.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, I've got a friend that we were on a moose hunt in the Yukon in 2006, and he ended up going through a divorce, and his comment was, I thought she was good for, 3 more sheep hunts, It's kind of like, oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
I don't need those kind of troubles.
Right. Absolutely. Me neither, man. I always tell my wife, baby, if you leave, I'm coming with you.
Yeah. There you go.
Because you ain't getting away.
Can't shake
All right. It is time for my favorite segment, our rapid fire questions presented by Tito Knives. Talking about these backcountry hunts. If you are getting ready for a backcountry hunt, you must check out Tito Knives. They are incredibly well built, incredibly light. And my favorite is the Airs with the replaceable blades. They weigh next to nothing. You can throw them in your kill kit and you're going to have razor sharp knives ready to go. Bryan, if you could hunt with anyone who is still alive, who would it be?
Who is still alive? Well, I would say if I could hunt with anyone still alive, that's an interesting question. My dad, he had a stroke a couple of years ago, and he's not able to hunt anymore. But I would love to take him to Alaska in a moose camp one of these years.
Oh yeah,
just so he can experience it. So I'd say that's my answer.
Dead or alive, who would it be?
Well, I mean, I would have loved to hunted with Fred Bear for sure.
Yeah.
That was my childhood hero, and he was my inspiration for going to Alaska and go on some of these adventure hunts. And so if I had that opportunity, that would definitely be the one.
What is your go-to snack in the tree stand?
Probably a Cliff Bar. I mean, I know it's a pretty boring answer, but I'm not a big snacker. So, but I do like in Alaska, I'll take Cliff Bars and if I'm glassing down the side of the mountain and get a little hungry, I'll crack one open.
You need to check out Uncrustables. They'll change your life forever.
I've heard you talk about that. I've never had one. So
those are the best.
Yeah.
What's your favorite pastime in the tree stand? What do you do to pass the time?
I'm really, most of my tree stands, I don't have cell reception, so I'm not on my phone. I really am a very focused individual. So it's one of those where I'm really not doing anything other than enjoying the hunt and trying to, spot an animal when I'm hunting. So I really don't have what you'd call a pastime, in the tree stand. Sometimes I'll actually, take my phone out and I'll be making notes of things I'm seeing or things I'm observing and or places I want to check out. But I really don't have, what you call a side pastime in the tree stand.
What is your favorite species to hunt?
Moose, no question.
What is your least favorite species? And I say that because we like to hunt everything, but there's hunts where you go on, you're like, I'm glad I did it, but I'm not going to do it again. You know?
Well, I would say for me, it's probably turkey. And I know for a lot of guys, turkeys are, they love it. I mean, they like it over whitetail, but, it's one. When I lived in Franklin, Tennessee, I had a lot of areas to hunt turkeys and I really enjoyed it. And right now I live in Michigan. I don't have the properties that I had in Tennessee to hunt turkeys, so I don't do it as much. So, I'm not a turkey fanatic like some other guys are, so I'd say turkey.
I'm glad you say that. And here's why. I have adamantly said that I am not a turkey hunter, that I don't enjoy turkey hunting. However, I have made it my pledge to give turkey hunting a new look, to give it a fair shake, if you will, to look at it with fresh eyes. And so starting next week, you have to tune in to the Typical Sportsman podcast. Starting on Monday, we're going to release a podcast every single day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And it is a full turkey hunting breakdown from the ground up. We're starting with Michael Waddell. He is sharing some funny, inspirational, just get you fired up to want to go turkey hunting, to make you go, man, I got to try this. And then we go through from the ground up, teaching you how to turkey hunt. Again, I just wanted to look at it with new eyes. And so we've got Bo Brooks talking about how to call turkeys. We've got Dr. Michael Chamberlain talking about turkey habitat and understanding turkey habitat. Nate Hosey talking about different tactics to chase turkeys. And then we've got Aaron Warburton from the Hunting Public talking about gear breakdowns for turkey hunting, shot placement for turkey hunting, and his tips and tricks to kill more turkeys. It is a really cool series, and I'm going to wrap that series up with a turkey hunting film. Come April, I'm going to go out and do a film of me turkey hunting and just trying to fall in love with it. Am I going to fall in love with it? I don't know. But my promise is that I'm going to give it a fair shake and look at it with new eyes. So tune in next week. Every single day, we're going to give you a full turkey breakdown, and we are doing a turkey hunt giveaway. So all you've got to do is make sure and subscribe to the Typical Sportsman podcast on YouTube or Spotify, and you're going to be entered to win a free guided turkey hunt here in Kansas. as well as some free camo from Blocker Outdoors and some of the new turkey broadheads from G5. So make sure and subscribe to the podcast so you're entered to win that, and then tune in next week for the turkey hunting series. What is your single favorite trophy of all time?
Well, I think, these are tough questions because, when you say favorite, you have so many great adventures trying to pick out one. But I would say it's the moose I killed in 2016 because that moose charged me twice. And I was able to get it done. And
that's
so
cool.
That was pretty memorable. The other one was I killed a wolf in 2014 with my longbow. And so a pretty rare opportunity for that to happen.
Yeah.
And, killed him at 7 yards. So that one sticks out there too.
Oh, yeah. That is pretty cool. And the pants that you made your mess in go along with that trophy. What's the most haunting miss of your lifetime?
I was in Southeast Ohio hunting whitetails, and I was grinding it out. It was late season. I think it was actually towards the end of December or 1st of January because the season goes pretty long in Ohio. And it was one of those where it was, no one else is in the woods. It's single digits, and I'm in there just grinding it out. And all of a sudden I look and I just see this rack, like 180 type rack coming right at me. And it's one of those where, it's going to happen. I could just, he's on this trail that's going to be, 20 yards in front of me. And I shot right over his back. After it was heartbreaking. Yeah. I just put my bow in my lap and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And it was one where I think I just didn't pick a spot. I just was looking at that horizontal line of his back and shot right over him. And he got out of town pretty quick, so I didn't get a second opportunity. But yeah, that one, when you grind it out all season and you're in the fourth quarter, last play, and then you've got that opportunity and it doesn't happen, it's heartbreaking. Oh, that one still hurts.
What is your favorite bow of all time?
Bear takedown, a handle, number 3 limbs.
Very good answer.
And what's Neil Bice, who I know from Bear Archery, he when I had my term as Compton president, he made a 1-of-1 bear takedown for me that I'm hunting with right now, and it's really cool.
That is very cool. What is one non-traditional hunting item that you always have with you?
Let's see. I'm trying to think. Non-traditional hunting item that I've got in my pack.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of stuff non-hunting in my pack. I would say the one that I always take to Alaska is my Bible. And there's something about, being in Alaska, being in nature, being in creation, and seeing, what God created that is really meaningful to me. And so, I've gone through the Bible a couple times. And so, I take my Bible every year up to Moose Camp, and that's, I don't know if you'd call that a non-traditional hunting item, but it's one that's
absolutely. Yeah, that's a great answer, man. And I agree 100%. If you've got taxidermy in your house, any shape, form, or fashion, doesn't matter. Euro mounts, full body mounts, turkey fans, I don't care. If you've got any kind of taxidermy, or if you want to prep your animals in the field in order to get the best taxidermy work done possible, you need to check out Velvet Antler Technologies. Listen, it is not just for velvet antlers. Do not tune me out and say, well, I don't chase velvet bucks. I don't kill velvet bulls. It does not matter. If you want to preserve your trophies in the field, whitetail, antelope, bear hides, if you want to preserve your trophy in the field and get it to the taxidermist in the best shape possible, they've got products for that. If you want to get those European mounts as white as possible, they've got products for that. If you want to take care of your trophies while they're on the wall, keep them clean, keep the bugs out of them, they've got products for that. If you've got blood in your clothes from packing out those animals, they've got you covered. Or if you want to do some turkey fans, they've got you covered. Hanging the Euro mounts on the wall, they've got you covered. They're your one-stop shop for all things trophies and all things field care in order to get your trophies looking the best they can. Guys, go check out Velvet Antler Technologies before you go on your next hunt and ensure you get your trophy back in the best condition possible. All right, Bryan. So for those listening, how can they go join and get involved with Compton?
I would say the easiest way is to go to the website. So ComptonTraditionnalBowhunters.com. And then there's a tab there to join. And it's just, what I like about Compton, besides all the other stuff we talked about, is just that tribe, that family of people that are willing to help you out. And if you want to go on an adventure, you've got a big network to leverage right there. So I'd encourage you to be part of it.
Absolutely, guys. Go check out Compton. Again, I usually encourage you to go follow my guest, but do not follow Bryan. He will make you jealous with all the crazy animals that he kills and all the crazy animals that he videos and passes up. So whatever you do, do not go follow Bryan Burkhardt on any social media. It will upset you. Guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a fantastic week. Again, make sure and tune in every single day next week. I have assembled, in my opinion, a list of the baddest turkey hunters that I could find who really understand the area that I wanted them to tackle on this series. So tune in every day next week. A new podcast every day is going out. And so tune in next week. But guys, thank you so much for listening. Have a fantastic week and keep the dusty side up.